Welcome to Dairy Delivery by the Dairy Star. On today's episode, we start in Durand, Wisconsin, as we talk with one of the Wisconsin Master Agriculturalists of the Year, Don Weiss of Weiss Family Farms. Next, we caught up with the superintendent of Sauk Centre Schools in Minnesota, Don Peschel, as our team discussed with him the installation of a milk dispenser and how it has grown milk consumption throughout the school district. Next, we head to Albert Lea, Minnesota to speak with what the community refers to as Lester the Tester. Lester Perschbacher began testing milk for the Minnesota Dairy Herd Improvement Association in 1956 and finished his 69-year career in May when he retired. Finally, we stay in Minnesota as we hear from Andrew Plumsky at the University of Minnesota's Southern Research and Outreach Center. Plumsky oversees the raising of 950 to 1,000 calves each year as the team conducts research on nutrition and management. You're listening to Dairy Delivery, all dairy, all the time.
Hello, this is Tim Coyle, owner of Minnesota Tarpon Liner, and I want to talk a little bit about Minnesota Tarpon Liner. We pride ourselves in being the leader in the industry with hundreds of tarps and liner installations. We have over 15 years of experience and are the most qualified to guarantee your best results. Our facility is second to none with in-house tarpon liner repair and state-of-the-art installation equipment. We know how to get the job done right the first time, which keeps you on the job site with your equipment. We carry everything you need to get your rig rolling again, with a full stock of replacement parts, tarps, and liner rolls in all sizes of lightning fast turnaround times. From top to bottom, we've got you covered.
I'm Dan Walker.
And I'm Michelle Stangler, and we're your reporters with Dairy Star, bringing you the latest in the dairy industry, including hearing from farmers across the Midwest and beyond. Well, it is June Dairy Month. Dan, how are you celebrating?
You know, I'm trying to go to as many of the June events as we can get to. The first weekend, I went to Butterfest in Sparta, like partially because that was my hometown and get to meet up with some of my friends up there. And then this last weekend, we went to the La Crosse County Dairy Breakfast at the Salem Speedway. Just, and obviously just trying to eat as much cheese and ice cream as I can. How about you? What are you doing to celebrate?
Well, every weekend in June so far, I have visited a farm for a breakfast, and I really just enjoy this Wisconsin spirit and Midwest. Of course, we have some in Minnesota. The first weekend, I went to a county dairy brunch in Dodge, and that was in Fox Lake, Wisconsin. Helped and volunteered there. And then another weekend, I took out a friend that was visiting from out of state to really get the full Wisconsin experience. We visited some June Dairy Month events. One, it was raining quite a bit, but we were still able to have a really good breakfast. And this past weekend, it's always a tradition to help volunteer at my hometown agribusiness breakfast, which is in Watertown. And I volunteered. I saw my dad. And it was a really great weekend to cap off one of my many adventures volunteering. So just many great ways to celebrate. And I know in the Dairy Star, you can really find some of those stories previewing and seeing some of the impact of those events. It's really cool to see. But now that we're really getting into middle of June, there is some first and second crop being done. What does it look like in your area?
Yeah, it's a little bit of people who got ahead early able to kind of work through it, and people who tried to wait out some weather have not had that string of good weather to really get it first crop in right away. I know, like when I was trying to call, I did day in the life for this issue coming up, and I was trying to see if somebody who had would be starting second crop this week or last week. And a lot of the people I was talking to in my area, at least, were telling me like, oh, they just barely finished up first crop because of just having like 1 or 2 good days and then rain, and then 2 or 3 days and then rain, and it's like rain in the forecast every day. So it's been a little tricky. So I empathize for those guys who are trying to make those tough decisions and when they're trying to cut and when they're trying to make hay. And it's a little bit more difficult when you don't get that 5 days you need.
Yeah, and if you look at corn, soon it'll be the 4th of July, and you know what they say, knee high by the 4th of July or shoulder high, just depends how you look at it. A lot of great things happening in here in the month of June. Let's get into today's episode to hear some of those stories from this past issue.
We start today's episode in Durand, Wisconsin. I had the chance to speak with Don Weiss of Weiss Family Farm about being one of 4 named Wisconsin Master Agriculturalist, an award recognizing farmers for their hard work, dedication, farming success, and exemplary leadership.
it was an honor to be nominated for one thing, but then to actually get the award was pretty cool, and to see the caliber of people that did win the award was very meaningful. It brings to life what it really means when you see the caliber of people that have won this in the past and won it this year with me, and it makes you really feel good about yourself that you're doing things right and hopefully continue to do things right.
What are some of the most important parts of your dairy that have helped you earn that award? The conservation aspect, your volunteering, all that.
I think a lot of it is the conservation issues. I think you know being on the watershed group. That's why we got selected to have the governor come here too. That's I always think about that as we have nitrate issues in our county here, and it's a very passionate thing for me to make sure that those levels do not increase, and it's because we have to live here. My kids got to live here. My grandkids got to live here. We got to drink the water, and that's it makes things to me. That is why I think it's important, very important.
And this award is presented to a progressive farmer. What's it mean to you? What does that term mean to you to be a progressive farmer?
Always moving forward. Doesn't have to be land. It doesn't have to be cattle, but somehow you're moving forward. Are you putting a new plan in place for marketing or marketing milk, marketing grain, a better way to, put up your forages, a more economical way to do it, hire it done or whatever. That's you got to constantly moving forward, trying to do better.
Yeah, and we've talked about it a little bit. From where you started to where you're at now, what have been kind of some of your biggest accomplishments so far in that? Considering you started with 250 cows, and now we're at 10 times that roughly.
Yeah.
What has it kind of been like your progress been like with that?
It's always taking a slow step. We've never, went from 60 to 1,000. It's always been 60 to 250 to 800 and 1,500 and 2,000. It took those slow steps, worked into it, figured it out, watched our debt, and managed our debt, and just did things at a slower pace maybe than now what you're seeing nowadays. It seems like these guys are just 8,500, 10,000 cows, and they're just boom, just like that. And it just that was not our mindset. It was rent more land, rent a little bit of here, buy a little there, rent more here, buy there, just little things at a time that we could pay for it as we went and not get overburdened from the financial difficulty of doing a big expansion or whatever.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's been huge for sure. And what kind of example do you hope Weiss Family Farm has on the Wisconsin dairy industry and maybe your community around you?
Yeah, well, I hope people see that, like I said, we are providing a good product, and we feel that we are, and they see how we are conservation minded and are always trying to be the next step ahead and being progressive. It seems to be that's the way of the future. Is it or isn't it? I don't know, but I mean we're hoping people see what we do and follow our example.
Minnesota Tarp and Liner Professional Solutions. Our customized tarp installation bay offers fast and safe job productivity and a full view to plan out your tarp and liner system. Our tool and equipment selection ranges from standard to the most specialized, offering steel and aluminum welding and cutting. We offer liner, welding, and everything in between. At Minnesota Tarp and Liner, we have what it takes to get your rig set up and back on the road with minimal downtime.
You can read all about Don and Weiss Family Farms' path to earning this prestigious honor by finding the headline, Humble Farmer Earns Top Honor at dairystar.com. Now let's head to Sauk Centre, Minnesota, where General Manager and Editor Mark Klepacki got the chance to talk to Sauk Centre Superintendent Don Peschel about the school installing a milk dispenser prior to the beginning of the 2024-2025 school year. Peschel talked about how milk consumption changed during the year and the improvement in consumption by students after adding the bulk milk machines.
First of all, just talk a little bit about how this came together, some of the grants that you applied for, and how the rest was funded, and then some of the successes that you've had.
Yeah, so basically, Mark, this started, with some local interest by some local farmers, people involved in the dairy industry. I was approached, it's been about a year, asking if this was even a possibility. So, a lot of people, including yourself, did some groundwork on this and talked to other schools, and through our food service company that we have here on site under contract, they've also had some schools that have gone to this bulk milk scenario. So we did some research with that, talked to the other schools that had it in our area, and they loved it. So basically then we applied for a grant. We received the grant through Midwest area. So that was huge in getting us kicked off with what we wanted to have accomplished here in regards to providing bulk milk for our students this year. And then also we had local farmers step up, several of them, they're funding this. And it's just been a huge game changer for us. So we've seen a noticeable increase in milk consumption. Our kids love it. We've heard nothing but positive. So it's been just a great initiative. And again, I go back and thank all of our local dairy farmers and dairy companies that are around that have helped us, fund this and keep it going. So it's just been awesome.
I know you had talked, even the Stearns County ADA was another one that helped with the grant.
Yes.
When we started this back in October, you and I visited, and we started with about 17 bags per month. Where has that went since that point?
Well, we're up, depending upon where you're talking about. Again, when kids go through the regular lunch line, milk is part of the free option they get federally. So we go through about 7 bags a day in that line, or 40 to 45 gallons. That's 5 through 12. Grades 5 through 12 are in this program. So, that's the one facet of it that is part of the federal lunch. Now, we've also got the milk dispenser out in the cafeteria where kids can go get free refills. So, we're going through 25 to 26 bags a month in that dispenser, and out of those, probably 20 of them are chocolate. Kids just love the chocolate milk. So that's been something where you just notice kids are drinking more milk. They're over there at that free dispenser, and obviously that's milk is very good for them. The calcium implications. It's great. So, we see a big change there. Kids just love it.
Talk a little bit about, obviously previously you had the cartons, and now we're into, I think with the grant that you applied for, part of it meant that you were going to get some cups that were dishwashable as well. And just talk about even the less waste. I mean, we're talking about the consumption, but even some of the bags that you're not throwing away right now.
Right. That's been one of the huge, one of the biggest things we've seen in regards to lunch is typically in a normal lunch in the past, you'd have 5 or 6 full containers of the big garbage bags full of garbage. And I would say out of those half a dozen bags, probably half of it was carton. Milk carton use. So we don't have that anymore. So we've cut our the amount of garbage that we produce during lunch over in half. I mean, that's been a big game changer for us. And obviously that's, then your bill goes down because you're not producing as much garbage. The cups have been great too. The kids bring them in, they go upside down in a wash bin type of thing, and then we put them in the dishwasher. So again, that's less waste as well. Out in the free area, we do have plastic cups that the kids use if they need to. Otherwise, they just bring the regular glass that they use when they get their milk through the free line. So again, just a huge change in the amount of waste that is produced. So, and kids used to take, before the bulk milk scenario that we're in now, kids used to grab a couple cartons of milk, some of them, but most of them would just grab one. And I would say, I don't know the percentage off the top of my head, Mark, but there was a lot of kids that didn't even finish that carton of milk. And again, part of the bulk milk, the allure of going to that was the taste. The taste of the milk is definitely different coming from a situation we have now with the bags than it was with the cartons.
You had talked a little bit about you were going through 24, 25, 26 bags a month on that free dispenser. How many servings are in a bag?
Oh, what is there? Probably close to, I want to say probably 75 to 100 is in the ballpark. It just depends again. If you fill the cup up, some kids take half glass. That's the other thing, right? They can take the amount in that free dispenser. They can take the amount that they want. They don't have to fill it up if they don't want it. So yeah, between 75 to 100.
Talk a little bit about the response that the kids had. I mean, you have all these kids from, you're talking a fifth grader, so you're talking maybe 11 to an 18-year-old kid, and just some of their initial response and just some of their reaction, because, we know kids are attracted to a lot of different things for drinking, and then to have them choose milk is a great deal.
Well, yeah, it definitely is. I think one of the things that I noticed right off the bat was, first of all, the transition. There was some concerns about the transition because you grab the milk, it's closed, you get back to your seat where you're going to eat lunch and you open your carton of milk, right? There was concern about a lot of spills and things like that. What's this going to look like? Well, we have had very few of those. That has not been an issue with this age group of kids whatsoever. One thing I have noticed is, when kids would bring stuff in from outside of the school lunch line, they were bringing in bubblers and Gatorades and all these other types of sport drinks, and some just drinking water. But now you see these kids grab a glass, so they're, maybe they still bring some of that stuff in, but there's just much less of that. So, and again, I think part of that goes back to the quality of milk, right? I think most kids like milk, and you see that it just tastes better. It's fresher, it's cold, and that makes a big difference. So a lot less, again, to answer your question, a lot less of what we used to see of non-milk product stuff coming into our lunchroom to be drank by kids by lunch.
And have you seen, the increase, obviously, in the consumption of milk? Is it 5 through 12? Has all the grades been so much more enjoying it? Have you seen increased consumption all the way through the 8 grades?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. I mean, obviously, there's kids that are high flyers around that free milk container, that they're there a lot, which is great because that's what it's for. But yeah, by and large, it's reflective of all those grade levels. There's been a definite increase by all kids in all of those grade levels.
One thing that I think really came together well for you is, last year you guys were also doing a kind of a remodeling project. So it allowed you to kind of put the dispensers that are part of the state's funding in a spot that worked really well.
Yeah, for sure. That they're part of our lunch line. The kids go, they grab their cup, and the first thing they do is fill up their glass of milk, and they grab their trays, and then they proceed down through the lunch line to get whatever their entree of choice is for that day. They come out, and of course, everything still, even though we're free, has got to be tracked. So we have people that they punch in their lunch number, and then they go sit. And because of the dynamic and the space increase in the lunchroom, that extra dispenser that has been in there that they can go fill up for free has got its own little place, and it's off. It's kind of out of the way of the main line that, because we still do have lines when you bring 250 kids in at lunch over at one time, you still are going to have lines to deal with, but that has not been an issue. We've been able to find a place for it. We got electrical to it. The dynamic of the change of the lunchroom has also made this transition into this bulk milk much more doable. It's made it much more smooth.
Talk about like these milk dispensers, because you think, you said 75 to 100 bags or servings within a bag. How hard is it to flip the bags over and change these out?
Yeah, they're heavier, right? So, we have people from inside the food service that do that. Jason, who's a food manager, comes in and takes care of it. And again, part of it is, they check them in between. There's 5 to 10 minutes, 5 minutes between lunch periods, between grade levels that come in. So there's time to check them, and we get them changed out. I mean, yeah, that was a little bit of transition to start with and an adjustment from the food service perspective. But, they've got a routine down now, and they know when to check it, and they do get them changed out. So, those dispensers are full. There are at times maybe where one grade level, we ran out of chocolate, so they have to wait. or we get it changed out though before the next lunch hoop comes in. So
for a period of 8 months, just a general synopsis, you couldn't be more pleased with how this has come together for, Sauk Centre School District and ISD 743.
no, I honestly, Mark, this has just been a game changer in regards to the biggest thing is the kids, right? You see how they react to a situation or a change. There's been nothing but positive. I have not heard one negative comment. Even the concerns about, cleaning the glasses, that's another step, right, for the people in the lunchroom. And what about the spills and things like that? We've seen not very little of that. So by and large, this has been just an amazing opportunity for us and for our kids to be put in a situation where things are healthier for them. And again, it goes back to our local people that have supported this. We wouldn't be able to do this without that and their support. And that's been huge. And it's been something, again, like I said, I've not heard one complaint. The kids absolutely love it.
At Minnesota Tarpon Liner, we carry P-Tax, which is an extreme self-adhering vinyl repair tape. P-Tax vinyl repair tape offers extreme durability, weather-resistant, and will bond to vinyl in maximum hold. Installation is as easy as peel and stick. Repairs made quick and easy with no downtime. Available in many sizes and colors, 2-inch, 4-inch, and 8-inch wide rolls.
You can find this story at dairystar.com under the headline Milk Dispensers Resounding Success for Sauk Centre. For our third story today, we head to Albert Lea, where southwestern Minnesota Dairy Star reporter Amy Kylo met with Lester Perschbacher, or as he's known around his area, Lester the Tester. Perschbacher retired in May after a 69-year career testing milk for the Minnesota Dairy Herd Improvement Association.
You started in 1956. What made you decide to become a milk tester?
Well, dates, this is crazy. I signed up for the Army, and the date was the 22nd of November. I failed my Army physical, so I came back to Albert Lea on the bus and walked home. The guy that I had been working for, somebody seen me walking home, so he came to my folks' place that next morning, and he wanted to hire me back. And my mother says, no, Lester's going to work for somebody else. So then I got a job outside of Freeborn County, up by Keister and Faribault County, and I started the 1st of January. I went over there. Well, the 22nd of November is when Kennedy assassinated quite a few years later. So anyway, that's when I was at John's then working, and I attempted to buy 2 different farms by the time September came of that year of 55, and both of them failed, or I couldn't get it. So anyway, John says, they're having testing school in September. Why don't you go? Because John was on test with Faribault County. Orville Riggenwater was his name. He was a DHIA tester. And I said, well, okay, but I have got a job here. Well, I said, go to that schooling. Maybe you like that better. So I went up to St. Paul, to the St. Paul campus at Coffee Hall, and there was 28 of us. I was to the next one closest to me was from Rochester, and so there was 28 of us who did bookwork or rotten division, multiplying and dividing Monday and Tuesday. We actually tested the milk on Wednesday.
Really?
Yeah, and then on Thursday we went back to doing our book multiplying and dividing again. That was all by hand. There was no machines. So then towards this Thursday afternoon, Ralph Wayne, he was one of the instructors, he said, are you interested in a job? Well, I said, I have got a job, but I said, it just depends. Ralph said, there is a job available in Freeborn County. They want to fire the guy they got. There's 2 testers, but they wanted to fire the one. So I said, well, I might take it. So I took it. Ralph said, well, you come down to the county agent's office, we'll set it up. So then their board, that Freeborn County board, don't have to come up to interview you. So anyway, that's how it got going, and the last part of September, first part of April, or October, they interviewed me in the county agent's office and signed the contract, which I still got. And so then I started testing the 9th of October, 56.
Wow.
The first herd I tested, there was 3 kids, and I got my nickname the first night, Lester the Tester.
That's amazing.
And I still go by that nickname, the greatest share of the places I go to. Even the minister at church calls me Lester the Tester. You know, there's so many people know me as Lester the Tester. Well, who's Lester Pershbuddy? Well, that's me.
It's like, is Tester not your last name? I love that. So, you were in Cleveland County for your whole career then, correct?
Yeah.
And so you retired. When did you retire?
It was the 13th of May. 13th of May, I was forced to retire.
Sure.
The doctor said I could no longer drive. That's the hardest job I ever had, was to go out and tell John Larson, which I consider my second son. His folks were married the Saturday before me and my wife were married. And then his family came along. My son was in March. His brother was in April. My daughter the next year was born in July, and his sister was born in October. Then they waited 4 years, and then in the 15th of August, my youngest daughter was born, and 5 days later, John was born.
Oh, wow.
And for many years, David he lived in the cities then, so David would come down once in a while, but I'd see John at least once a month. So
Yeah.
I considered him my second son.
Wow.
When basically that's the way it has been all the time. And so, they're very good friends. That was my hardest job I had, was to say, on that Tuesday, I'm forced to retire. The doctor said you can drive 30 miles an hour in town as long as there's a curb on the side of the road. Well, there's a curb all the way to church. I would been about a mile and a half to make Grace, something like that.
Yeah.
And out to High B and the gas station. That's all curb.
Well, you can find that story titled Lester the Tester Hangs Up the Hat at dairystar.com or in the paper. Our final story today also comes from Amy Kylo, who spoke with Andrew Plumsky in Wazeeka, Minnesota. Plumsky and the team at the University of Minnesota's Southern Research and Outreach Center conduct research projects on groups of 100 to 120 calves to see how they can be better set up for success on their way to adulthood.
So with the dairy on beef, this is a project that started, or it's a different project each year that we do, but it's something that started a little bit before my time, 1 year prior, but we've developed it a little bit. And so we bring in 60 dairy beef cross steer or bull calves. And they actually come from one of the dairies that we get heifer calves from. So from a biosecurity standpoint, we just raise them in calf hutches, which we don't use the outside calf hutches in the wintertime because it's really tough to do research. So we're able to utilize and bring in some extra animals. Also at the same time, I usually have part-time help or a summer intern that I have some extra help around in the summertime to be able to do an additional research study. And that's one that really excites me on the aspect of looking at different ways to feed these dairy beef calves. I mean, a lot of them are being fed the same as we feed dairy calves that are going into these heifer ranches or even that are being raised on farm. We're feeding them on the same programs, but it's like, do they need to be fed a little bit differently, looking at that side of it to get them off to the right start? And so this will be the 4th year that we're doing this. The first year was just looking at a 24-20 versus a 20-20 and just seeing how those results came out on the protein on milk protein and fat on milk replacer. And then the last couple of years, We've looked at a little bit of different feeding strategy as far as the next year was looking at a little different levels on milk as well. But then now this year we're actually have switched to doing a starter study and actually looking at different types of starters and how they take off eating the starter and how their performance is over that time.
So it's almost kind of like multiple mini research projects within a whole research project, kind of different.
A little bit.
each
They're
year.
different folk. They're each their own project,
Mhm.
but to me, it's an additional portion of what we do here.
Mhm.
It's interesting to see over time we can build a kind of a database of the different trials we've done with the dairy beef animals, but
Mhm.
you can also take some of the things we've done on just regular dairy heifers and apply them and see if there's a difference there as well, if we need to be feeding them slightly different.
Yep.
Having them on a different program, as far as like cost effectiveness of what we're raising them on to. So how many days they need for weaning. And I think there's even more opportunities we have there, just to figure out if they're with how big the dairy beef portion has come. I mean, I went to the Dairy Calf and Heifer Conference a couple years ago, and they have a full track that's just for the dairy beef side of it. And those were some of the fullest meetings there, just with what the value of those calves is, and how that plays into the beef industry.
So then tell me a little bit about you've got the other two trials. Tell me a little bit on like choosing the trials. Are you like writing grants and choosing topics? Are other people part of that? How does kind of what's a little bit the determination process on, hey, this is some projects we want to work on?
So this is a little bit, the strategy is a little bit different than some of the other parts of research within the university. So we have partnerships with like Hubbard, where they were a part of when we first started here to get the facilities built. And so we do 3 studies a year with them. So they have that's a portion of what we do here.
Sure.
Is things that they're looking at. But the value I see in that to their end consumer is they're putting the money into, okay, this is their starter line or their milk replacer line. And they've actually ran the research through us as a third party entity to go through and feed them and have that data set to take to their farmers and say, hey, we made these changes and this is actually the performance we saw across these calves this time of year as they make ration changes, or there's things on that side of it on the starter. I think there's a lot of value to that. As far as people making decisions on the research we're going to do in the future, there's myself, and then I work with Dr. Isaac Sulfur up on campus. He's kind of our faculty person that's tied with the unit here. So he's working with, as we look through protocols, and making the decisions as to what we're going to move forward with. And then we've also worked with companies like it was Milk Specialties and now it's Actis Nutrition. And I think there's been some other things that have happened in the past here, but it's balanced. I guess what I'm looking for is to do all the research we can in a great way, because I see the value in what we're doing to the end consumer. Because each research project, if it's beneficial to the company that we're working with, in turn, it should be beneficial to the dairyman.
Read all about the research Plumsky and the team are working on with the story Calf Data Farmers Can Use on dairystar.com.
We'd like to thank today's sponsor, Minnesota Tarp and Liner. They pride themselves in being a leader in the tarp and liner business with a facility second to none. They know how to get the job done right the first time, carrying everything you need to keep you on the job site. From top to bottom, they have you covered.
Well, there's many stories you can find in the latest issue of the Dairy Star, including some father-influenced dairying duos. One of our Wisconsin reporters, Stacy Smart, spoke to a dad-daughter duo that's been farming for over 10 years together in Belleville, Wisconsin. Alita and Steve Helverson work side by side, making decisions together since Alita returned to the farm at age 19.
This issue also shines a light of fathers working in the dairy industry. On our side of the fence, throughout our readership area, you can find how adults, sons, and daughters are working together with those fathers. It's always really cool just to see what those farmers' answers are to those our side of the fence. I really enjoy reading those.
Yeah, I thought this one was really cool too because we had the father. We didn't just have one perspective on it. We had the father answer a couple questions, and then we had the I was gonna say offspring, but I don't think that's the right word for it. The son or daughter answered similar questions too. So we got perspective from both of them throughout this. I thought that made this edition of the Our Side of the Fence really interesting, getting two perspectives for the same one. Another story in this issue is how one father is taking action to pass the farm on to the next generation, believing estate planning often gets overlooked when it comes to passing on farms to the next generation. Nathan Heisingfeld and his son Lucas milk 450 cows in Spring Valley, Minnesota, and is planning to pass it on to the fourth generation on the sesquicentennial farm.
Another story found in this issue's history segment takes us around the world to Indonesia. Amy Kylo detailed the U.S. government's dairy termination program, commonly called as the whole herd buyout, which led to 12,000 U.S. Holsteins to find a home in Indonesia.
Find more stories in next week's Dairy Star newspaper. Then come back to the Dairy Delivery on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts to hear more of these stories. Rate and subscribe. And if you or someone you know is interested in being featured in the Dairy Star or on Dairy Delivery, reach out at dairydelivery@dairystar.com so we can continue sharing all dairy all the time.